Welcome to the Getting Started module, where we're going to be covering the basics for the things that we need to have in place to get our self-hosted WordPress site up and running. In this module, we're going to be laying the groundwork for getting your domain name registered, getting you signed up for your hosting service, and getting WordPress installed through your hosting provider. We got some additional resources available for you through the membership area. I've created a guide on how to choose your domain name, a guide on where you should register your domain name, and a guide on how to choose your web host, and all of those are available to you through the membership area. But before we get started, I want to touch on a couple different things. I recommend keeping your domain name registration and website hosting separate, and there are a couple reasons for this. Keeping them separated gives you better control and greater flexibility over your website platform from day one and throughout the life of your website. When your domain is registered independently of your hosting service, you have the ability to point your domain name to a new hosting service in the instance that you want to change your web host. So think about it this way. If you have your hosting service and your domain name registration in the same place, but you want to move away and do something completely different, it becomes a lot more challenging when you want to leave that service altogether. If you keep your domain name registrations in one place and keep your website hosting service in another, it's much more easy for you to be able to go to where your domain name is registered, make a couple changes that I'll show you about here in just a little bit, and point your domain name to a new service and forget about the old service. So that is one good reason, and probably the best, and it's certainly the way that I do things. So I highly recommend it for that reason. But in addition, when your domain name is registered independently of your hosting service, you don't have to worry about transferring your domain if you want to switch your hosting companies. So it's kind of the other side of that same coin, right? If you want to keep hosting and if you want to switch your web hosting, it's just much easier to switch when you are independent of your domain name registration with your website hosting. One thing too, a big cautionary thing that you want to pay attention to, that when your domain name is registered with your website host and you do both of those things at the same time, your domain name could be locked for up to 60 days, which would prevent you from transferring your domain to another registrar. So say for instance, you signed up for a service that you completely hate, and you want to move to a different service for domain name and website hosting, you could be locked in with that particular domain name with that provider for up to 60 days. So that can be really challenging from that perspective. And if you take a look at this site here, this is from ICANN, which is the international organization that oversees how domain name registration is provisioned and managed throughout the world. Talks a little bit about how those domain name locks work. So you'll definitely want to take a look at this if you're considering whether or not you want to keep all of this stuff in one place. So that is definitely something to keep in mind. So again, the whole idea here is to be able to have flexibility and control. When you put all of your eggs in one basket, you run the risk of having something go wrong and take everything out. So if your domain name is separated from your website hosting, and say your website hosting company goes down, say maybe you love them and you really enjoy their service, but as it happens from time to time, some of these big brand name web hosting services have had major outages. And if you have your domain and your website hosting all in one place, it becomes much more challenging to take your site to go to another provider to get your site back online. And history has shown that this can be problematic. So definitely want to keep an eye out for that. As far as getting your domain name registered, I recommend using a service called Hover. And that's what we're going to use for this project. We're using hover.com for our domain name registration. We're using SiteGround for our website hosting. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But there are other options out there that are available to you as well. Namecheap is a great domain name registrar. GoDaddy regularly has great deals for domain name registration where it's really cheap to get started. There are other companies like Bluehost and Media Temple and several others. There are lots of really good options out there. I don't have a relationship with Hover or SiteGround outside that I'm a customer of both. I think they're both probably some among the easiest services to use for these kinds of things. So that's why I'm recommending them for this particular project, but you can use whatever company that you're comfortable with to do either one of these things. So just wanted to cover those things about why we're doing domain name registration separate from website hosting before we get into this too much farther. So hopefully that all makes sense. So now we are going to jump into this. Let's go over to hover.com. And this is the site that you'll see when you get to Hover. The things that Hover does in terms of what they offer is really robust, and it's why I like them. So, but we're going to go ahead and walk through this whole process here. I've actually already registered a domain name for this project, so we're going to use a similar domain, but I'll show you how you can see some of these good features here that Hover offers. So if you come up here, and when you land on hover.com, you're going to land on this page where you've got the ability to just input the domain name you're looking for right here in this field. So we're going to go ahead and input our domain that we're going to demonstrate here with. And for the purpose of this part of it, thewpexample.com is what we're going to use. I actually, like I said, I have a different domain name registered, and I'll show you that here in just a minute. And then once you put your domain name into the field, go ahead and click the search button, and it will bring you through to this next page. And I think this is where it gets really great as far as domain name registration with Hover. It gives you tons and tons of options for what you can do as far as different variations of domains for what you are searching for. So in this instance, we use thewpexample.com as our target domain. Well, luckily enough, thewpexample.com is available. So we don't even really have to go any further at this point. If we just want to go ahead and register this, all we need to do, go over here, click this plus icon, and that will add it to your cart. As you see over here, by default, it's set to 1 year of registration. And all you would need to do is proceed to the cart, finish your checkout, and you're good to go. But what I want to show you here are some additional things that may be useful to you. So it offers lots of different options for you to register variations of domains. And, you know, some of them are featured like this one here, this wpexample.me or the wpexample.tech. You know, these are some of the sales that they've got going on. And if you have a variation that you want to use and use for a different purpose, this would be an option for you to do. You can see also here we've got some of the kind of tried and true standard top level domains that are also available. So we've got the wpexample.net, .org, so on and so forth. But as you go down, you'll see a few different things here. So you've got some suggestions here. Say the one that we were looking at wasn't available. Well, luckily enough, Hover is going to provide you with some different suggestions for what you might be able to register there. So what we've got here are some variants, either in spelling or maybe using hyphens or different kinds of configurations that are based on our primary domain that we could choose from here. So you see all these options, and then you get down into some of the more the more intriguing, more interesting kinds of things, for instance, the wpexample.engineer. These may fit your scenario. I mean, if you want to if you got an engineering firm that you're building a website for, the wpexample.engineer or .engineering may be great options for you. So, but the great thing about Hover that I wanted to point out is that it shows you what all these various different top-level domain extensions are that are available to you when you input your original domain, so that you have plenty to choose from. So, and as you can see, we've got media and music and sports and hobbies and all kinds of different things that you could kind of use as a starting point for different extensions for your domain. But for the purpose of our project here, we're going to use the WP example in this checkout, and we're going to use a different domain for the project, and I'm going to show you that in just a second. But we're going to move forward here. We're going to go ahead and proceed to the cart, and here it's at this point, this is all pretty standard stuff in terms of what you have available to you. You can select multiple years of registration. If you plan on using your domain for an ongoing project, I recommend registering your domain for as many years as you are comfortable registering with and it fits your budget. Like if it's your personal name and you're able to get that, then registering it for 5 or 10 years would be like a no-brainer. Your name is not probably going to change unless you're getting married or something like that. But it's always good to lock those domains up. And then one of the other great features here that is available through Hover is this privacy service. And what a Whois privacy add-on it means is that when you register a domain, there are records that are associated with your domain that contain some personal information that anyone on the web can look up. So, for instance, let me show you let's do whois.com/whois. This is where I use this tool all the time to check different aspects of domain name registration. If, for instance, like if I see a domain that I want that is registered, but there's nothing on the website or nothing on the domain, I'll do a quick check to see if maybe it's expiring or something like that, or if I want to reach out to the owner. So let's do this. We're going to use mywpexample.com, and that's actually the domain name that we are going to be using on our project. So if we click that and pass the bot test there. So you'll see all of my personal information here has been removed from the registrant info and replaced with the values from the privacy service that Hover is providing here. So that's a nice feature to have when you are ready to go there. So here you'll see you've got that Whois privacy service. Leave that checked, and then really the rest of this is just pretty straightforward. I mean, it's like any other online checkout that you've done before. So you would just click on Secure Checkout, and that would bring you to this page, and then you just fill out your information as normal. Go ahead and complete your checkout there. So when you're done there, it's going to bring you into a page that looks like this. And here is the actual registration information for mywpexample.com. So you can see we are good to go. My domain name is registered. My renewal date will be on November 10th of 2019. Renewal price is $14.99. That we've got privacy and transfer lock is on. Auto renew is on, and those are the things that we want to have for our domain name so that we make sure that we are protected there. So at this point, the only thing then you are going to want to pay attention to here, just to keep in mind, because we're going to come back to this, is we're going to need to update our name servers, which is this portion right down here that you can see. When we have our domain name registered in a different place than our website hosting is, we need to be able to tell the domain name where to look for our hosting service, and that's what this does. I've gone ahead and updated this right here, but you can see we've got SiteGround in place here as our name server. So now we're going to switch gears and go over to our web hosting service, and I'll show you where I got these values when we get over into that particular portion of it. So here we are on SiteGround to get set up with our hosting. Now our domain name is all set. We're good to go there. Now we just need to go through and get our website hosting up and running. So when it comes to getting started with your own self-hosted WordPress site, from the beginning, you don't need a whole lot of big fancy, features when it comes to your website hosting service, but you do want to have scalability. So working with a company that has the ability to scale with you as your website grows is a really important factor. So, but for now, we're going to go ahead and click on this one, this reliable web hosting, which is just the basic service that SiteGround offers. And then as needed, when our site grows, we can grow from here and have our site be able to scale to do pretty much whatever we want to do there. So the only thing that we need at this point is this startup package, which is $3.95 a month. Really super basic, one website, suitable for up to 10,000 visitors monthly. Again, as you can see here, you've got the ability to scale. The Grow Big package has got some additional resources, and the Go Geek package is even bigger than that, with the ability to do multiple websites and extra storage space and bandwidth and these kinds of things. So you're in the right place because you've got the ability to have your website scale with you, because if we build this right, we're going to be building a site that is going to grow. So we want to make sure that we have a hosting plan that can grow with us over time. But for now, we're just starting here with the startup plan. So go ahead and click on the Get Started piece. It's going to ask you what you want to do for domain names, and we're going to use our example domain, thewpexample.com. And then you just walk through the checkout process here. It's going to do a check to see if that domain name is available. So we'll go ahead and select, since we've already registered it, we just say, I already have a domain, select that, and then click on Proceed. And they're going to ask if we want to register it, and we just leave it as it is because we're not registering this one with them at this time. We're just going to go ahead and set up the service. Now that we've completed that previous step of telling them that we've already got our domain name registered, we don't need to do anything with it, we're going to go ahead and then walk through the checkout process here. Again, super simple. If you've ever used a checkout form online before, there's no surprises here. You just need to make sure that you check your boxes here down at the bottom, and you are good to go. Once you get through that, and you will in SiteGround, then you will get this particular page here. So we've got our domain name registered. We've got our website hosting service purchased. Now, the last piece of this puzzle that we need to get started is getting our website set up. And thankfully, SiteGround has got a really great tool that is going to allow us to do this really quickly and easily. So right here, we're going to go ahead and make sure that we are going to go ahead and get WordPress set up on our site. There's really not much that we need to do here, in terms of changing anything, unless you wanted to do a different content management system, but that is not this course. We are working on WordPress here. So we're going to start a new website set, and we're going to click on WordPress, and then we are going to input our details here for our WordPress admin information. So this is going to be the information that we use to log in to WordPress. So obviously you want to use a good email address and a good solid username and password. One thing to be aware of is sometimes people will use the term admin, ADMIN, to serve as that first user for their WordPress site. I don't recommend doing this because it's a security issue. And basically what you're doing when you use admin as your username, you are giving hackers who are trying to break into your website half of the equation by leaving that as admin. So for our purposes, I'm going to use a different username and something that is going to be unique that I will know. In this example, I'm just using my social media login name, but you can use whatever you want. It doesn't have to even include admin. It can be, whatever you want, but it needs to be something obviously that you are able to track and keep up with. Your passwords, you want to make sure that those are strong. And usually that means uppercase, lowercase, and then some sort of symbol that you use for, like an exclamation point or the @ symbol or a pound sign or a dollar sign, something like that you can incorporate into your password there. Once you've got that information all ready to go ahead and click confirm. And we don't need anything else here, so we're going to go ahead and click confirm one more time, and then agree to the terms of service and click complete setup. When it's finished, then you will see this screen here and says that your hosting account is ready to use, and then you can click the button and carry through into the customer area. So here is here's our hosting account. Got everything set up. WordPress has been installed. We are good to go there. And then by clicking on my accounts, you will see here, here is my website, mywpexample.com. And we're going to click through here to go to our WordPress admin panel here in just a second. But before we go, if you'll remember over here on our domain, I mentioned that we need to have our domain name servers and updated over here with our domain name registrar so we can tell the domain where to look for our website. Well, now that we know where we're going to get that information over here from SiteGround in this information and settings tab right here. So you'll see this piece right here, account DNS, and then you'll see the name servers that we need to use. So regardless of what registrar you use and what hosting service you use, you'll have values that look like this, and this is what you're going to want to be looking for. So we would take a copy then of this and bring this back over to our domain name information here. So we would just click on edit, and then we would paste in these values in each one of these. So since we've already done this, we don't need to go ahead and do this again, but I'm pointing this out so that you can see where you need to go to get your DNS information. If you have trouble finding it, and if you're not using SiteGround, if you reach out to the support team with whoever you're using for your website hosting, they'll be able to provide you with that information pretty quickly. It's a very common question. So, and because again, basically what this information does is it tells the domain name where to look for the website. So now that we've got that part done, and now that we've got our website installed, we are ready to go. So let's go back over to my accounts, and installations is what we're looking for here. So mywpexample.com, and we'll go ahead and click this and go to the back end of our WordPress site to make sure everything is working correctly. And this will be the information that we chose during that process. So you can use your username or the email that you used to sign up for. And we'll go ahead and input that information, and here we are. We are completely good to go. So now we have everything ready to go. Our basic building blocks are in place. One thing here is you'll notice this popped up over here. I use LastPass to manage my passwords. I highly recommend using something like this because it's secure and it's very easy to use. LastPass is a fantastic tool when it comes to being able to manage all of your various different websites that you have to log into. And all I'm going to do here is add this to my LastPass by clicking that, and that will take care of that. So we are good to go as far as this is concerned. And so what we'll do next then is we've got several other things that we're going to be getting into. We're going to take a tour of this dashboard in another module, and we're going to go over theming and several other things. But before we get to that, the next one that we're going to talk about is how to do this installation manually, because there are going to be some cases where you might need to manually install WordPress on your hosting service. So we're going to cover that service next.